All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a fantastic Saturday. Derek Lambert here, host of MythVision Podcast. We're going to be journeying deep into the life, a personal story of one of my friends that I just discovered. When you have this channel, lots of people who are on a journey of exploration and trying to figure out the answers find you. And I, like I've said in the past, have been part of some pretty, I guess you say, fringe groups in terms of eschatology, because I went from partial preterism to full preterism and spent many years there before I ended up where I started to deconstruct. And today, my friend Tristan Gabriel is joining us. So let's just get right into this thing and have some fun. Tristan, welcome to MythVision, my brother. Can you hear me?
Hey, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you, Derek.
I thank you again, bro, for being here. But listen, we got to go slow, man. We have to be like Second Peter and have long suffering and make a minute into a second. Okay, a day is like 1,000 years. Okay, here's what I mean. I want you to take us to your house when you're born. What kind of household are you in? Don't jump to the church just yet. Just let's start with you and your mom and dad. Were they devout, or would you say they were like mediocre, like they believed, they were sincere, but they weren't like on fire? Give us that. Let's start there. Where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Stockton, California. My parents were devout Christians. You know, we come from the Apostolic United Pentecostal Church, and the Apostolics, I mean, our women don't wear makeup. We didn't believe in wearing short sleeves like what I have now. Our women don't cut our hair, 1 Corinthians 11, wearing long skirts. And so it's the Holiness Pentecostals. I mean, this was, kind of like the Hasidic Jews. You know, you have the Orthodox Jews and then you have the Hasidic Jews. I would be categorized as that Hasidic type. And I didn't have much of a choice. You know what I mean? Born and raised in this. It's deeply embedded in your brain, in your psychology. So this is something that I felt that God ordained for me, even as a child. You know, we looked at ourselves as special. Yeah, there's Christianity out there, but we're a little bit more special because we're more dedicated. And that's the mindset behind it. So I come from the Holiness movement.
I know exactly the way. I might chime in time and time again just to say that was my first real serious. I mean, maybe I was Christian before, but like when I got in house church, it was non-denominational. They were a little less strict about what you wore, so to speak, but we were speaking in tongues, casting out demons, and prophesying in the whole nine. Like we were trying to like relieve ourselves of demons, the demon of lust or spirit of lust, these kinds of, everything had spirits. That's what the kind of background we came from. So we are two peas in a pod, bro. Please continue.
Yeah, same thing. You know, miracles, signs, and wonders. Just separation from the world. You know, we don't go to movies, we don't go bowling. Yeah, things like that. And you know, when you have a mega church like a Pentecostal palace with about 3,000 congregants every Sunday morning, plus you have a Bible college in the United Pentecostal Church where you constantly have new students, new future ministers, future pastors, pastors' sons, pastors' daughters, bishops' sons, bishop daughters coming in. You know, you really do feel that you are part of something special. So yeah, you know, my parents were very devout. My father sat on the platform in church with Bishop Kenneth Haney, who is a legend in the United Pentecostal Church. Anybody can Google him and see his background. He's a very, very good, sincere man.
What are the odds that your microphone, you can hook that good old mic you had on before? Is that an option, or you're in your phone and that's not an easy thing to do now, right?
Yeah, I'm in my phone. I'm on my phone. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious because your audio before was just on.
I know.
Perfect.
Very unfortunate. Okay. Out of all times.
Just yell at us. Just yell at us, bro. I'm okay if you yell. Okay. So you had a pastor, like a legit, serious, bona fide, holy rolling Jesus freak for a dad, and you had to live up into those shoes. You had to be the pastor's son and carry the mantle, I guess, I imagine. What was it like growing up as a youth going into your teens? as far as church goes and believing
Yeah,
in Jesus?
I'm glad you brought that up because my parents backslid out of all of this. Yeah, so when I was around 10 years old, my parents backslid. So they went out salsa dancing and they went out clubbing. They left the whole thing. And so as a child, what am I going to do? I did the same thing. So I had my teenage years, my years in middle school and high school, not going to church at all. Not really thinking about God at all. But it wasn't until I was around 19, after I graduated high school, when my mother went back to church. And she was very influential in bringing me back in.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I'd like to share this. This is very powerful when it comes to my testimony, when it comes to going back to Christianity. Um, I had moved out of my parents' house when I was 16. I moved in with my girlfriend and her mom. And we got in some sort of, verbal altercation. So I wound up sneaking back in my parents' home. Okay. So I
Okay.
snuck in through the window. I needed a place to sleep. I snuck in through the window. And my mom is up at 5 o'clock in the morning, travailing intercessory prayer, calling out my name, praying for my soul and my salvation. And I am listening to this, enduring this. Tears are rolling down my face as I'm hearing my mother just
Yeah.
pour her entire heart out for my salvation. So that was very, very touching to me.
Yeah.
And so my mom was very, very influential. So then, I decided, I said, let me go ahead and go back to church, see what this whole life was all about. And I remember, Derek, you talked about how, you had dreams and visions of the
Yeah.
rapture and the last days. Well, I was having things that were similar. I was very intrigued with sleep paralysis. And sometimes when I would fall asleep, I would have these end time visions and dreams at the same thing. So I'm over here thinking, wow, God is calling my mother back home and God is calling me back home. So it
Right.
was very, very touching, very, very poignant.
Just
And
a
so,
jab in here to make a point. People are going to
yeah,
notice this about you and the science of the mind. There's a development that's going to take place through this discussion, I imagine. They're going to need to know. I don't even think I need to point it out. They're going to see. But for the viewer who's going, you left, you were never one of us. Okay, we get it. We understand your theology. We understand the verses you're going to pull from. We can pull other verses that show actually you can fall away. You actually can leave. You can use your verse. We can use a verse. Either way, we don't care. It's not the point. What I would like to say is that we did have profound experiences. And these experiences, I've had Christians say, just forewarning where we're going with this. Christians say, how could you know Christ and then walk away from him? If you knew him, you would never walk away with him from him. And I'm like, if you only knew the experiences I had, I thought those experiences were him. Now I have rationalized explaining what I think these experiences are, not saying I didn't have experiences, not saying they weren't profound. The
yeah,
thing is, we just don't say that's Jesus anymore, the same way you may not credit the Mormon bosom burning or the Muslim, Shahada experience or like the Shiva trance in India. You don't think that that's real, or if you do, they're demonic. Like everyone has an explanation for these things, and we once said it was Jesus. And so, anyway, I'm foreshadowing where we might be going into some of this, but please continue where you're at. Your mother loves you so much and touched you, and my mom has too, bro. I promise you, I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's keep going deeper into your story.
yeah. So, every time I fell asleep, I would have these dreams, visions, these experiences. And of course, I would call upon Jesus to come and save me from demons that may be pouncing on me, or, and this is something that's very profound all throughout history, sleep paralysis and, some sort of dark demon coming on you when you're asleep. So I felt that this spiritual world was something that is divine ordination. God is opening my eyes to the truth. So it was time for me to come back home. I had plans to join the military. I had future goals as a young man, but this was my calling. So, man, I went back to church, and here I am. I'm a Pentecostal dancer right in the middle of the altar. I mean, God has now called the prodigal son back home. and the trajectory of my life is completely changed. And it was beautiful at that time. I looked at the holiness movement as something that was beautiful. This was virtuous. So I came in as a lover of Christ and as a soldier of Christ, dedicating my entire life. I said I might as well go to our home Bible college. I might as well just give it my all. So that's what I did. And I like to touch on this point about people who are trying to suggest that our conversions were not real. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to Mike Sullivan yesterday about this exact same topic, and he was telling me that I never was truly converted. And we know Mike Sullivan is a voice in the full preterist movement. He debated Michael Brown. And I told him, so you're going to pass judgment on me when I was a 5-year-old little boy in Sunday school, and you're going to try to say that I didn't love Jesus when I was a kid? This is absolutely amazing. You would have to say that, somebody who's born and raised in church, you would have to say that as a little baby, that person was never truly genuine in their faith with Christ.
Well, by the way, that always happens. And it's not just a religious phenomenon that this happens. You'll find it even in politics. You'll find it in like anything. In fact, Professor Dave, big YouTube channel, just did a thing on flat earthers. And they literally flew $35,000 or $40,000 to fly 4 flat earthers, each paid for each $35,000 to fly them to Antarctica and watch the 24-hour sun with their own effing eyes and be persuaded, because they all said, based on the flat earth model, the pizza pie kind of earth model, that it can't be 24 hours. I'm making a detour to make a point here. This is not just Christianity, even though it attaches, flat earth is attached to this. They finally get the evidence. I think 2 of them are coming out saying they're no longer flat earth, but everyone called them shills. They don't accept it. They were never truly flat earthers. They were really globe conspiracists. Like, it is something that always will happen, bro. So we will never persuade people with our words or experience unless we become Christian again and stay that way until we die. They will not accept it. That's just how oblivious to facts and obvious truthfulness we're trying to portray. It doesn't matter. And even if they say, I believe you're sincere, but you still don't have the Spirit. He comes from a Reformed camp. So that's a whole nother thing of saying you're not elect anyway, because God's the one who has to cause you that and stuff. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You have to do that. No, you're right. I mean, you have to do that. That special pleading is what it is. And, it gets old because it's just simply not fair. There are plenty of other religions that have very similar experiences, just like you said, Derek. As a matter of fact, I like to bring up some of these neurotheology books. Andrew Newberg, who is a leading neuroscientist, a Jewish leading neuroscientist on religious experiences, and he studied all other religious experiences, and you'll find the same exact empirical data, the same exact symptoms that touches the nervous system, that enters into neurological properties of the brain. So within Pentecostalism, this charismatic movement that you and I experiences are foundational to our faith, especially when we're reading the Bible. You're reading the book of Acts, you're reading 1 Corinthians 12, the gifts of the Spirit, 1 Corinthians 13, 1 Corinthians 14, speaking in tongues. This phenomena is something that is so very profound. There's over 300 million tongue talkers within Christianity. This key word, experience, and I think I know where we're going with this, and I hope we can touch on.
Yeah, we will. By the way, you're glitching. You're glitching in and out. Somebody, we need to get rid of this demon right now. Speak in tongues. Come on, Tristan. We got to speak in tongues and get rid of this demon, bro. Come on. How about Shiba Baba? I'm totally joking. I'm blaspheming to some people right now, probably. Tristan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. It's coming in and out. It's just keep that in mind. If I need you to repeat, forgive me. I might go repeat that sentence because, dude, everything you're saying is so powerful and it's important what you're describing. Let's not sidetrack from your story into these experiences yet, because we can get into more of the facts and the things you learned along the way. Dude, you're on fire for Jesus. Mama's love brought you back. You're the prodigal son. Your story, you're probably speaking at church. People are probably listening to this. You're giving testimony. I know for a fact that experience from someone who was a drug addict, who struggled and got back and then fell out and went to the pigsty and realized that it was better at home and, the whole nine. Where are you at now? You're in the church. You're devout. you're in your 1920s, you're going into your 20s. What's happening in church, man? Are you moving up the ranks? Are you going to college? But you're going to do this for Jesus all the way? Talk to us.
All the way. My mindset, Derek, was we're in the last days. We need to give it our all. Soul winning, evangelism, out on the streets, knocking on doors. That was key. That was my heartbeat. Getting Bible studies, plugging them in, bringing them into the house of God, all the while attending Bible school, having to wear a suit and tie at 7 a.m. in the morning, doing a whole entire Bible course on just one book. So 4 years of Bible college. I was in various ministries, like I mentioned before. Juvenile ministry is where I started doing before I hit the prisons as I got older. But I was involved in the youth group. I was involved in outreach. I mean, you name it. I was involved in it, gave my entire life over. And I actually believe that God called me to celibacy. I mean, the Apostle Paul was somebody who was, somebody very inspirational, just like many of other Christians. And so I didn't want to even give my life over in a relationship because I truly believe, Derek, that we were in the last days, that we were the rapture generation, and that it could happen at any time. And so once I graduated Bible college, so many doors opened up. During the summer, our Bible college had a summer preaching tour where our Bible college would rent out a car. It was me and two other young preachers, and we would go all throughout the United States and preaching in churches, promoting the Bible college. And man, we were making a lot of money. I mean, we made $2,000 off of one service. And when you're 24 years old and you just preached a message that you've preached something similar before, $2,000, these pastors are just giving it on us. I preached in Southern California, all throughout Michigan, Kentucky. I've been in New York. And so this was something that was happening every summer. So wow. It was a beautiful life. I look back and I say, even though I'm not a Christian today, I had some great experiences. I had some good times. I made some good friends, some good times. And I appreciate that.
So before you get to not being a Christian, though, you're traveling, you're on fire. You mentioned celibacy. Golly, bro, like the tug of war that you must have experienced in your real experiences versus this virtuous ideal that you think you're going to be able to try and achieve. That's probably another thing. And it's very personal to get into sexual stuff, but I think it's almost necessary sometimes to mention.
Absolutely.
That I can tell you this, I am not meant for celibacy. Okay. I am 100% not meant for it. And I tried as a Christian, not for celibacy. I tried to just restrain from any like masturbation, any of that. I tried not to do that because that's sinful. And then the well-known mythical story in Judah, your seed on the earth, God might strike you dead kind of thing. That was such a struggle. What made you think celibacy? I have to ask before we move forward, like, what made you think the rest of my freaking life? Like, how did you come to this idea?
I mean, I'm telling you, when you're a minister in a mega church, I mean, you do have, females who are attracted to you as a speaker, as a minister, as a man of God. I've had plenty of opportunities to be married. Now, I did have feelings for women. I did have crushes, but this was a sacrifice that I would give to God. I tell you how you were talking about the spirit of lust, which is something that is just biologically natural within us.
I know.
Fasting. I mean, when I was in my prime years as a Christian, fasting 2 or 3 days out of the week, going on an extended fast, water fast for 21 days. I reached 21 days. I wanted to reach 40 like Jesus, but I took a leave of absence from my job. I was a waiter at the time while I was in Bible school. I wasn't a full-time minister yet. And I was really dedicated to this because lust, Derek, is demonic. This is the demons that are coming to me, trying to take me to hell. So was it easy? I would say no, but when you live for God hard, it's easy.
Yeah.
And when
it
you
is
live
easy.
for
Yeah,
God
I know what you
easy, then it's hard. It's one of those things. So I'm a soldier. I'm not going to betray my Lord and Savior. So at the end of the day, fasting was something that quenched that lust. And so, I mean, I'm talking about strict water fast, which I still practice today. I do a lot of intermediate fasting. As a matter of fact, I'm sipping on coffee and tea and I'm not going to eat my first meal till around maybe 7 o'clock today. So,
Right.
it was a lifestyle. It was a holiness lifestyle. But I hope that answers the question. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
plenty of opportunities,
Of course,
but
of course.
yeah,
I just each person's different and their struggle with this is different. I just figure I'd ask like what made you want to dedicate, but it was a sacrifice that you had. You wanted to be like a biblical character. You wanted to
yes,
take it to that next level. And it's
yes,
kind of funny because you and me feel we when I read the Bible, like from Genesis, when I was in high school is when I actually read the entire thing from beginning to end. I was struggling with pot. I was smoking pot every day. And then finally I was like, I need Jesus to help me stop. So I'm reading the Bible and I felt like I was there. So in a sense, it made like you're this omniscient reader looking back at it, and I'm part of the main character. So now I am a main character in this story, and you think you also, Jesus says, you will do greater things than me. Oh, well, that's me,
yes.
like so, like I know what you're talking about, and you were taking it there. So you're on fire. You travel the United States. You're preaching to get this college growing. You went 4 years to college. I feel like a lot was unloaded, even though we don't know the chronology of all of these events. You may not even remember all of the chronology exactly. But what happened? Pivot. Is there something that starts to take place? Do you start to? Is there doubts that happen? Is there anything that's going on, or does it get better before it gets to a point where you end up starting to transition? Like,
I'm glad you brought it up, because when I was teaching in Bible college, sometimes when you read the Bible throughout, for years, you want to read other literatures. So I got into philosophy and I got into science. And
hmm,
Bertrand Russell was one of those that I absolutely admired, even though he's an agnostic. A lot of people mistake him as an atheist. He was actually an agnostic, but he's been attributed to atheistic literature. Bertrand Russell and Christopher Hitchens, those two I would listen to religiously to, bolster the apologetic, because we have to have some sort of defense when it comes to the atheist, right? And I don't want to pull faith as a cop out for reason. I want to be able to have a fair man to man dialogue. So
right.
I would listen to Bertrand Russell, read his literature, Christopher Hitchens. And I always thought, my goodness, you know what? If I was not born and raised in this, I probably would be a skeptic. I probably would be an atheist. I probably would be an agnostic. And this was about maybe, 2 years after I graduated Bible college. And then I attended seminary with the Assemblies of God. And so, there's levels to this. There's levels to when
Yeah,
it
yeah,
comes
yeah.
to the right. So once I started reaching that level, and then when you're teaching this, as we know, the more you teach it, the more insight you have. You kind of start teaching yourself. You see different angles. You see the fine details of this. So Bertrand Russell was one of those that I would read, and I just would remember closing his books, thinking, "My goodness, there. If God is going to send this man to hell, God has to at least commend him for his intellectual challenges." I was impressed with Christopher Hitchens, and Alistair McGrath, who he debated, stated the same thing. Many Christians at least admired him on a human level, on an intellectual level. So he was just one of those that made an impression on me. And so the Bible college students, when I was teaching apologetics in Bible college, I would use Christopher Hitchens. I said, "What would you guys say in response to this?" And I was tired, Derek, of using faith as a cop out for reason. In
Right.
philosophy, it's called fideism, which Tertullian coined. Tertullian was one of the leading voices of the doctrine of the Trinity. He had stated that, look, it's in order to believe in God, you're going to have to abandon reason. So many times, Derek, in early morning prayer, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting up, interceding, speaking in tongues, praying, I would literally have to block out my reason, block out my cognitive faculties to hold on to this faith in Christ. And after a while, Derek, it starts getting very, very tiring,
Yeah.
especially when you talk to other religions, like you said, the Mormons. You talk to Muslims, and here they are using the exact same special pleading, the exact same faith card. And I
Yep.
thought to myself, I'm tired of this. So Bertrand Russell was that one. And then I started an Instagram page called Theology Discussions, and I was gaining, I gained, some followers. I was making some noise, and there were some scholars that I was talking to. One of them was the doctrine of tithing. That was really the one that really got me. I said, you know what, this doctrine of tithing is so unscriptural, so unethical. So that kind of planted the seed for me to have that courage to finally stand up against some of the pastors and some of the elders and the mentors in my life, just using the scripture alone.
Yeah.
So that
Let me ask you
doctrine
this.
of yeah.
Before we get into tithing, because it sounds like we're all like, here's what's happened, right? We're trying to climb up to the apocalypse here, to the end. And it feels like we're literally about to go just plummet into non-belief here. And I think things are going to happen pretty quickly. So let's pause for 1 second. I need to know a few things about you, Tristan. Did you stay within Holiness, Pentecostal, or did you kind of move around, or did you flirt with other theologies, or you were just like, I'm just sticking with this, and you checked out some of the other theological kind of positions but weren't persuaded because you were already indoctrinated in your own? Where were you at in that?
I mean, I studied other religions, other versions of Christianity. When I went to the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary, they were Trinitarian. I came from a oneness background.
Right.
So, I mean, I was, very, open-minded. I was always open-minded, but I still held to the apostolic oneness because that was my family. That was my home. That was what I was positioned in. That was my paycheck.
Yeah.
But after a while, I'm not going to lie to myself. And I'm not going to, violate my own personal integrity. It gets tiring after a while.
Right.
So that's pretty much what happened. So eventually I just, like I said, I just studied other philosophies. I studied epistemology. I studied science. I wanted to hear what the critical scholars had to say. I wanted to hear what the opposers have to say. So that was pretty much the process of it. But it wasn't until Don K. Preston and his ministry he was the number one man that had the intellectual courage to stand up to Bertrand Russell and answer Bertrand Russell's critique on the second coming. So
okay, give us the background of that. Give us the viewer doesn't know this. Maybe some are from Full Preterist. In fact, I imagine Full Preterist are watching you right now because I put this in the Facebook group, Preterist Perspectives. There's a shameless plug, Barry. Send me a check after this. I'm just kidding. So Tristan, tell us why. Okay, you loved Bertrand Russell, like you said. What is the dilemma with Christianity, and what did Bertrand Russell say that makes this so significant to you?
The existence of evil was one of them. My father, he was, when he stopped being on pastoral staff, I mean, he had backslid with my mother. It took him some time to come back. But while he was backslidden, he worked for the coroner's office with the sheriff's department, and he did body removal. So my father shared so many stories. I even went on ride-alongs with him, anything from homicide, suicide, car accidents, you name it. I mean, I have seen evil in right here in our own societies. I mean, not just thinking about it and talking about it. I mean, I've actually seen this, dead children. And so when you see the existence of evil and it's right in front of your face, it's not just a philosophical topic. So Bertrand Russell and his critiques on theism, something that really stuck with me, and his critique on the second coming. So this was something that was really challenging me for about a year or two. Christ said that he was going to come in his generation. Some of you standing here will not taste of death till you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Here he is using the scripture in his book, Why He Is No Longer a Christian. And I read that book thoroughly. So, and I didn't have an answer. But it wasn't until when I had this Instagram page, what it was called Theology Discussions, that somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I'd like to, appear and have a little discussion on this. And it just sounds so bizarre, right? Like you're trying to say Jesus already returned. And I was very cordial with them. I'm thinking, look, he returned. I was like, who's the Antichrist? What about the rapture? What about all of these things, right?
Yeah.
So then this man introduced me to Don Preston. And it wasn't long until I caught the power of his teachings. You understand? It wasn't long.
And me.
we know what we're talking about.
Yes. Because okay, let's lay out a little framework here, because viewers need to go, what the hell? They're excited about something and we don't even know what's going on. Okay, the problem of evil in a nutshell. The reason the second coming is to come in is no more death, no more sorrow, no more pain, like literal death. Like we aren't going to have to suffer anymore, ladies and gentlemen. That has really been the kind of consensus view of Christianity for thousands of years now is that one day all the troubles, saying goodbye to your loved ones, what's the point of life, right? And all this bad will be made up by God. He will fix all that's been broken, right? Simply as that, literally, not in some weird way which words say it happened, but nothing really occurs. Okay. So like that's where we ended up going. Like when you are defending your faith, you almost will lie, even if you don't realize you're lying, or you will delusionally go to conclusions at all cost, even at the cost of the meaning of words. But we're going to get to that to make this point. Bertrand Russell saw the problem of evil. We all see problems in the world, suffering, animals that exist just to eat other animals. Other animals exist just so that the food of other animals. Worms that exist just to bore human eyeballs, as we've heard Stephen Fry say. Like, there are weird things about this world that you go, if there's a loving, omniscient God, why the hell would he make that? Okay. Then we find excuses about free will and why evil enters and all this stuff, right? We have all these funny ways of trying to reconcile reality. Bertrand Russell's saying, look, Christianity fails because this has not been reconciled. Then this guy, Don K. Preston, comes in. We believe, me and Tristan believe Jesus cannot be wrong because of those experiences, our upbringing, our indoctrination. He cannot be wrong. Scripture is true. Let all men be liars. The flower fades and the grass withers, but the word of our Lord will stand forever. Hallelujah. This is where we are, right? Hamarashima Baba, right? Dude, you can speak in tongues, by the way. Don't hide your secret powers. People need to hear this stuff. And so we hear this guy, so well spoken, Don, and not only that, he's such a nice dude. Like, he's so kind. Get up there and say, ladies and gentlemen, Jesus didn't fail. We just got it wrong. We misunderstood what Jesus meant and what he said, and he did a very clever thing. And that is finding places where it seems metaphorical or allegorical, describing Yahweh flying on the clouds, but he's not literally flying. It's just symbolic of a nation conquering another nation. And so it doesn't literally mean this. It's just a general idea of a war that happens between two nations, though the words say, and the earth cracked asunder and the mountains melt with wax and the stars did not give their light and things like that. All these Christians for 2,000 years have been interpreting all of those literal phenomena wrongly. Death doesn't mean death. It's spiritual death. And we started to look in the garden, right? This is another problem, right? The Garden of Eden, God says, the day you eat, you will die. Can God lie, Tristan? Not with our worldview, right? Not with our perspective of Genesis and how we interpreted it. Right. So he must not have meant that same day, and he must not have meant death the way that so we find ways to reconcile this material. Now, back to you. I just needed to lay out the groundwork that Don Preston really got us. And we were like, I thought he was crazy, and then clicked the next video, and then the next video, and I started going, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this.
Yes. Same thing. Exact same thing. I've listened to every single morning musing series on the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15, taking notes. I mean, just like I would in seminary, just like I would in Bible college, and I was excited for it. I'm like, I can't wait. Every time you would have another morning musing series that would drop, like this guy right here. And I would introduce him to my pastors. And I would say, what would you have to say to this sincere man of God? And let me tell you, he's from Ardmore, Oklahoma. My pastors were from Oklahoma, so they have that same cultural accent, that same background, and it really touched home, And so even to this day, I admire Don. I admire his courage to debate. And that was another one too, was that he was willing to debate. And that hit home to me, because I always thought, how come these pastors aren't debating other pastors or having live discussions? How come they're not using social media the way that they can to make a better impact in the kingdom of God, right? So his willingness to debate, he's very well spoken, and he was, made some great arguments connecting the dots, audience relevance, time statements. I mean, my goodness gracious. As a matter of fact, when I had brought up some of the arguments to my pastor, he literally said, well, if that's the case, then Christianity ended in 70 AD. And all of a sudden, he saw the conclusiveness of the full preterist paradigm. And I said, oh, my goodness gracious. Okay, so what's happening here? So when I was, a full preterist, I converted my mother over to full preterism. And she saw the audience relevance. She saw the time statements, metaphoric language, right? But it wasn't until the resurrection. It wasn't until I thought, okay, so then how did the saints experience this change to immortality? How did they experience this meeting with Christ in the air? And so when I was messaging Don on his YouTube comments, I wasn't getting many answers. I would hear the IO preterists make their arguments to say that it was conclusive, it was finalized in 70 AD. And so we all know that when you touch on something on YouTube, you have a suggestion video, right? And then all of a sudden, your videos were popping up. IO videos were popping up with DaCosta. And so it was it was just, wow, it was a process. And
okay. Our audience, just look, you and me are talking inside language. We know the game. So IO, they don't even know what that is. Israel only. So there are factions of ideas in full preterism. There's debate among full preterists, what full preterists are right about this or that. There's so much going on here. So first things first, what Christians are expecting, the final resurrection, is this idea that real resurrection, actual people's bodies will be raised from the dead. This is an idea that the church teaches, that universally there will be a resurrection where the dead, those who are not Christians, will be finally condemned to the second death, and they will be done and gone for eternity. Whether you believe in annihilationism, you might even be a universalist. Sometimes they think that it's a reconciliation where they finally come to. But then there's the resurrection of the saints. So you get the sheep and the goats, these kind of ideas in the final end of judgment, where the real world, a new heavens and new earth, literal, death, literal, sickness, tears, suffering, literal experiences. Tristan is going to want to tie these together here for us to understand. This is inside ball game language is expected by the Christian church today. What happened, and I want you to correct me or add anything to this, Tristan, to make sure our audience understands, because we're so deep in the weeds here. What happens is we started seeing Jesus say things like, some of you standing here will not die, before that finality of things happens where the angels of God come with the Son of Man and he judges. And there's like this end of all things idea that we have understood, the final resurrection, the final judgment, all of that. There are time statements indicative that this is supposed to happen extremely soon from the time of the speaking of Christ we see in the Gospels. Paul gives hints of this, that he thinks he will be alive and remain when this happens. He thinks he's going to be one of them. So we start realizing this when we never realized this as Christians, because no one emphasized it. No church teacher, pastor ever said, Jesus back there believed the end was going to happen back there, not 2,000 years today. Like, we were teaching that Jesus is going to happen any day now. He's going to come on the clouds. It's going to end. Don Preston said, look at what Jesus says. Look at what Paul says, according to these books. They thought then. Bertrand Russell saw that and said, they thought then. You're still waiting? They thought then. Christianity fails. Don Preston says, no. They thought then, and it did happen then. But how it happened, what happened, and what that meant, that is something that the church has been wrong for thousands of years. And you can cherry pick a church father who says, imply something of an aspect, but like you have to go through hundreds of them to find a thing that might match your full preterist doctrine to come up with this like way of systematizing your view. Tristan, I just needed to lay the groundwork that you have. Most Christianity is still waiting. These guys say, nope, already happened. So where's our hope, right? Or modern Christian futurists, as they call them. Where's our hope? They're still waiting for the future. Full preterists say it's already passed and you don't even realize it's already fulfilled. It's spiritual. All right, take over, man, because you're more actually active, involved in full preterist circles, but I needed to kind of lay something out, add anything subtract anything, take us somewhere with this, but our audience does not understand, maybe to some degree, some of this lingo that's going on.
Yeah, I completely understand, because full preterism is such a small circle within Christianity, right? You're looking at about less than 1% of the entire Christians are full
For sure.
preterists. So,
I'd say like 0.1,
probably
probably.
0.1, right.
Yeah, like if that.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because the full preterists, they use literally, when you do a calculation, less than 1% of the entire Bible. There's 1,189 chapters in the Bible. The number of chapters that they use to apply after 70 AD to apply to us today is less than 1%. And so when I started seeing that conclusive arguments, I started hearing from the IO preterists. I started hearing from, just skeptics from your channel. I'm hearing your testimony, your involvement with full preterism. And this was right before the COVID season. And I remember, Derek, my deconversion. I remember being in my car, and I'm crying. I mean, I go, my goodness. I remember Dr. Miller was talking about this. When he started seeing this mythical view of the New Testament. And I just remember thinking, this entire time I have been wrong. And I don't think that I can side with this theology anymore. And so that's when I became a skeptic. I became somebody who sided now with the critical scholars.
What were some of the problems? What were some of the things leading up, if you can recall?
Yeah.
What were some of the things that made you start doubting?
Yeah, it was pretty much when I deconverted from full preterism, and it was the resurrection, this fallaciousness of it. And there was no responses from the full preterist camp, namely Don, on how the saints experienced this. And so from all the other facets of philosophers, critical scholars, namely from your channel, that's pretty much what did it. I said, I can no longer use faith. I'm being honest. I can no longer use faith anymore. I am now a skeptic. And I cannot side with Christianity anymore. And the existence of evil, Derek, if I could really choose one, the existence of evil is still one of those that just just like myself and many others. And I'm supposed to believe that we are in the new heavens and the new earth. And another former full preterist, Sam Frost, was one of those who left full preterism, debated Don Preston, wrote a book why he left full preterism, and I was reading his literature as well. So it wasn't until I saw that conclusive argument from the IO camp, the Israel-only camp, that everything was fulfilled in 70 AD. And that's it. Checkmate. I mean, there's nothing applied to us today. It was only for those in the first century. And so when I saw this, go ahead.
Take us into the resurrection thing a little bit for viewers.
Okay,
so what is the problem? This is insider. So listen, you're part of the Illuminati now. If you're watching this, just so you know, we'll send you your badge and your hood and the whole nine. And we already know your address. Don't worry, and your socials. So don't worry about giving it to us. Tristan, what is the problem with full preterist perspective pertaining to the resurrection? I mean, why is that a problem? Why would that cause you to fracture, to break away from the faith? I don't understand.
Well, because it was Don who had stated, and mind us, Max King, who was the one who founded this full preterist movement, at least one of the voices of this, who mentored Don, he became a universalist. And yet Don was arguing for the covenant body resurrection, that it wasn't literally, like you said, Derek, physical bodies coming up out of the graves. It's not literally a meeting with Christ in the air together with the dead. It's some sort of spiritual event. So in their own words, in their own literature, if I could go ahead and bring it up.
Yeah, bring it up.
If you can, anybody can get a copy of this book. Look at page 153, pages 160 through 165. Where the leading voice of full preterism is trying to describe how the living saints experience the resurrection, the rapture. Tim LaHaye is, we all know him as the one who made the Left Behind series. He's trying to replace this Left Behind series, clothes left behind, cars are crashing into one another, everyone's being just vanished up into heaven. So
right.
What are we substituting this with? What's the mental image that we should be substituting being caught up together with the dead that mostly all Christianity believes, and I believe my whole life. And so when I was pressing Don with these questions, which was one of the reasons why I sponsored the debate with Richard Carrier, it took me about
Yeah.
2 years to finally get this answer from him. And he knew me from before. I started debating full preterists on a smaller platform, all things eschatology. Is Brian Simmons, he went by Phelan McPhalen. He noticed me in the comment section, challenging Don with this. And so he goes, well, why don't you come on and hop on? And I assumed that Israel only paradigm their weapons against the full preterist paradigm.
Yeah,
Right.
that's something
So
that the audience is not going to know what that is yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
right.
maybe 2 people out of 500. I don't know. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
Yeah. So I started, having these small debates with the full preterists, those that were willing to debate, right? And so the more I was engaging with them, the more assuredness I'm thinking, my goodness, okay, so this resurrection, this rapture, what kind of event is this? And Don had stated, I want to say it was in his debate with a man by the name of David Hester, that he stated, look, if there was a physical rapture, if it was a physical resurrection in 70 AD, then Christianity ended in 70 AD. Then all those that were Christ at his coming, then comes the end. So it was kind of like Don was cornered. If he admits a physical rapture, if he admits a physical resurrection, then that's it. Christianity is done away with. Christianity ended in 70 AD if you are consistent with that full preterist paradigm of eschatology. So I was pressing Don and other voices of full preterism on this resurrection, and there was no clear answer. And as a matter of fact, his debate with Mark Smith, which was on MythVision a couple years ago, right? He compared it to Elisha's servant tapping into the unseen realm. He said, well, it's in the unseen realm. The resurrection happened, but it was in the unseen realm. And he compared it to Elisha's servant in 2 Kings chapter 6, when Elisha's servant tapped into the unseen realm and saw the chariot army surrounding them. So I'm thinking, okay, so you mean to tell me that all of the saints all throughout the world, did they fall into some sort of trance? Did they feel goosebumps? Did they shake? What in the world took place that was experiential, that they could finally know, hey, now I am changed to immortality in the twinkling of an eye. Hey, now I have met Christ in the air. How did those living hundreds of miles away from the Jerusalem temple experience this change to immortality? Which is a very basic, fundamental question. You don't have to be a Bible scholar to process this and to understand this.
Okay, just so people see this picture, all your life, you're waiting for Christ. The problem of evil is forefront in terms of the reality you see. Your dad is working with the local cops or people who are picking up dead bodies. You are seeing death firsthand as a son who's on ride-alongs. We're seeing bodies. You're seeing real problems. You're in California where there's probably some crime around where you're at. So you see there's no way that we could literally be living in this heaven, new heaven and earth, the way that full preterists describe it. Christians are still hoping and waiting, but there's a dilemma. There's a dilemma because now you have to say Christ is delayed, or words don't mean words even if you're a futurist, because now you got to go, well, a day means 1,000 years. So a day doesn't mean a day anymore. It means whatever the hell God wants it to mean, which is a cop-out in 2 Peter. Or you go with this idea that it did happen, but these words don't mean what they mean. And so when they don't mean what they mean, that real death isn't death. Oh no, it's the Elijah unseen realm death. It's the unseen realm resurrection. By the way, Tristan, I don't know if you knew this. I won the lottery 3 days ago and won $1 billion, bro, in the unseen realm. And you prove me wrong, bro. Prove that I haven't, Tristan. Anyone in the world, prove that I did not win the lottery 3 days ago in the unseen realm. Give me any falsification to prove that I'm wrong. You can't. Good luck. Well, that's a great way to prove your faith. Yeah. And this is the problem that you and I are having. We want the facts. We want the truth. So now you have either Jesus didn't come and delayed, or he already came and nothing happened other than the slaughtering of his own chosen people in 70 AD by a foreign non-Jewish military, Rome, and they cannibalized themselves. And they almost like, this is the sad part, because, Christians jump to scripture and they'll find prophecies, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is like, those are like positive, but then they go to Deuteronomy and find this, in your last days, you will eat the flesh of your sons and daughters. And it's like, what? And then they go to 70 AD, which, by the way, this is probably reflecting Babylon and what happened during the Babylonian captivity and
absolutely.
destruction. But full preterists jump to 70 AD because this destruction of Jerusalem happens again. And they go, God was prophesying that his own people would eat their own children. Bro, what does that tell you about God? At what point do you go, is he not going to step in and do something or what? So you and me are struggling here.
Yeah.
Flopping like a fish on dry land, trying to figure out the world.
Yeah. Exactly.
Continue, please. I'm sorry. I'm just
no. By all means, that was it. So the more I was challenging the full preterist paradigm, the more assuredness I was getting that, my goodness, this skeptic worldview, the critical scholars have been correct this entire time. Bertrand Russell has been correct this entire time, I believe. The atheists like Christopher Hitchens and other critical scholars. I mean, my goodness, now it all makes sense. The moment I have stopped using faith as a cop-out for reason, as a blanket to cover up something that is just so obvious. And so that was it. I'm still very passionate for Bible theology, for philosophy, for these type of dialogues. And it was your channel as well, Derek. All the critical scholars that you've hosted, very instrumental in my deconversion.
Wow.
And it's just ministered to me. And so I'm just so very grateful to be on, to be a part of MythVision. I truly believe that you're going to reach every continent of the world if you haven't already. And so it just amazes me where we're at in the 21st century, and I'm excited what the future holds. I'm more appreciative of my life now than I've been more.
That's
than
what
ever.
I was gonna.
So yeah,
I was gonna ask you. Can you go into your experience now? Like, we had experiences that were good. We had some bad. I mean, every human does. Like, let's not paint everything must be bad if it's Christian. Like, this happens often when we deconvert, is we get the chip on our shoulder, we get angry at the faith we once held, that kind of stuff. And it's natural. That's natural too. But where you're at today, can you tell us what life is like? Is your experience no longer having to carry the baggage of faith, worrying about a father in heaven, what you do right or wrong, these kinds of things? Like, people act like that means you could go and live in any sin. Why not just go murder? Why don't you just go dude, because it's not practical and it makes no sense to me. And that's not what I want to do. But tell us what life is like for you now that you left, and go into any details you want.
Yeah, I mean, I believe I'm still the same person. You know what I mean? I'm not going out stealing people's belongings, murdering people. Life is great. I'm an educator. I cherish the future generation. I still want to be a good person with ethics. I'm still very passionate for this Bible theology business. And so, life is pretty much, that's not really much different. I'm not preaching in churches anymore. I'm not going out telling people about, the gospel and bringing them into heaven. But I pretty much still have that same evangelistic mindset that I still want the truth. And so I do respect people's beliefs and, and their civil liberties. I'm not out here to offend anybody, but I still would like to tell people what I believe is true, what other critical scholars believe is true, because as human beings, we value the truth. We want to know what the unbiased, pure truth is, even if it offends us, even if it hurts us. And so, I'm grateful for my experiences in Christianity. I don't have any regrets. I'm definitely not bitter at God, shaking my fist with this impure motive to destroy people's faith. Definitely not my motive. I'm just somebody who's a good sport, and I like these topics of religion and philosophy and history and all the topics that you have on your channel. I'm very much interested in this. So life is, pretty much the same. I mean, I'm grateful. And if there is an afterlife, if there is, I hope that I go there in a good place. I hope that all my friends and families, I hope they all go there. I'm not wishing any harm upon nobody. But I still am very passionate on these topics, and I enjoy them very, very much. And so, yeah, I mean, it was an honor to have sponsored the debate with Richard Carrier,
Yeah.
and Don Preston. I mean, that was an opportunity for me, because that's how much I cherish this, that I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is, that I'm willing to pay for this. I look at it like if it would be a boxing event, a UFC event. Like, I want to see these two guys go at it. That's how I look at it. And it was great. I enjoyed the debate very much. The very first question, I finally got to get Don to answer this question about how the saints experience the resurrection. And this is where we got, and I have to say it, Derek, the dancing in the streets
Okay, so
statement that he
we
stated.
need to get
And I
into
and I
these
have to
weeds.
say it because I'm gonna get it tattooed on my leg, and I'll post it in Preterist Perspectives.
Okay, can I
To me,
give a
that's
little context here just to
Yes.
throw? Okay, so we've been talking about the problem of evil and solving how do we explain the Bible with Jesus coming back, fixing all things, making all things new, destroying the enemy, and getting rid of evil, and good remains, right? Well, full preterist in a nutshell, and there are so many different kinds. I was going to bring up Ed Stevens' point about going behind the mountains. He says flee to the mountains, and then that's where the rapture happens, and then like all sorts of interesting little nutshell, like little details inside of full preterist circles. But the main debate that Tristan is actually trying to say is full preterist capitalized on the destruction of the temple. What made this a believable thing wasn't that he said Jesus came back and it was just a few verses of time statements. It was also able to anchor the concept of the Roman-Jewish war with Josephus historically to the gospel narratives describing an event that was going to happen, and Josephus documents the Jews do get destroyed. And Jesus gives indications in the Gospels like, don't weep for me, weep for your children and your children's children, like indicators that he knows something's going to happen. I think it's written ex eventu. Conservatives want to argue this is really prophecy. Either way you slice it, it wasn't out of the question that a Jew could say they think the temple's going to be destroyed. Jesus ben Ananias and Josephus, if this isn't completely fictional, is describing, whoa, 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 whoa. And some scholars even think Mark is using that when he puts it in the mouth of Jesus. Here's the context. 70 AD, Roman-Jewish war with the Jews in the temple is the climax and final judgment and resurrection, because the judgment and resurrection are going to happen at the same time. Okay, we see tangible, I'm trying to paint the problem here, Tristan, tangible, historical, million-plus people, if the numbers are correct, cannibalizing and dying inside the Roman-Jewish war in the temple, Jewish people, God's chosen people, which gets retranslated and reinterpreted, if you will, reinterpreted into the Christian is the real people of God and not the nation of Israel. That's the judgment, the final judgment, according to full preterist. But the resurrection happens for the saints and believers. How? We have real tangible death and actual reasons to say, damn, I could see why someone would say that's a judgment, because in the ancient world, any catastrophe, natural or man-made, was usually a sign that the gods were battling or the gods were involved somehow, and it's judgment. But what is the reward? Where is the resurrection in a tangible form in any way, shape, or form that is going to prove this happened historically? So it seems off-balanced. And Tristan is saying, what did the saints at the moment that happened and the judgment takes place, the moment the resurrection takes place, what happened? And Don, he's dancing around this, you're saying, and you come up with this idea of dancing in the streets. But then you're saying, correct me, and then get into the weeds here, Don Preston, the guy that persuaded you and I to become full preterist, will say, ladies and gentlemen, they rejoiced for their salvation, but they were saddened by the annihilation of their brothers and sisters being killed in the Roman Jewish war. So they're sad and happy at the same time. And all this, you're like trying to get full preterists to answer this problem.
Yes. And as we can see, this is the answer, that while potentially their own friends and family were in the city gates of Jerusalem for 5 months, it took to besiege Jerusalem, during this Holocaust event is what it would appear to be, that the saints all throughout the world, in Corinth, in Ephesus, in Galatia, all throughout the nations, they all started dancing in the streets. And Don had stated that they were dancing in the houses and that he was real sure that they were dancing. And I'm over here thinking, my goodness, did he just become Pentecostal? Roderick Edwards, I just had him on my podcast. He thought the same thing. Is Don promoting that the Christian saints were dancing like Pentecostals? And so when I first heard this, Derek, I was laughing. I was rolling on the floor. I mean, this was hilarious. So you mean to tell me that just get out the rapture imagery that Tim LaHaye has put in the Left Behind series,
Right.
replace it with Christians all throughout the world, saddened, that their friends and their family are in the city gates, but they're not dancing over their suffering. They're dancing because they were vindicated. A societal vindication is what Don had stated. And they just started dancing. I don't know what kind of dancing they were doing. Maybe whatever's in their culture, they're dancing. But they're just dancing, knowing that they're women and children, innocent women and children who are not persecuting the church.
Right.
And they were dancing in the streets.
So yeah, that's an important point, though. Doesn't he try to say that they were vindicated for their persecutors, both Roman and Jewish? But I think mainly he leans into the Jewish, which leads to all sorts of questions about where that can go in terms of anti-Semitism. But at the end of the day, these Jews that are being slaughtered in the temple, this Holocaust, they were somehow part of the problem of persecuting, which we know there's no way all of the people that are dying in this temple are involved in persecuting Christians. But it's accusing them of guilt and saying, you guys screwed up, probably for a handful of people. If you take this historical, a handful of elite Jewish people having Jesus crucified. So all of these million plus people are now being slaughtered, and they're saddened that their sister or their mother or their brother or their sibling or daughter or son are being annihilated in the temple, but rejoicing because there's vindication because some of the persecutors are being slaughtered in the temple. How do you reconcile this, Tristan?
Especially when there's no history. I mean, number one, there's no history that Christ returned. Josephus never stated this. There's no church father that said Christ returned in 70 AD. You brought this up, Derek, in the debate with Richard Carrier. If we could find just one historical document that stated Christ's return. So that's a weakness in the full preterist paradigm. Then the second one is, where is there any history of Christians all throughout the world dancing in the houses, dancing in the streets, and also dancing in the mountains of Judea, which Jesus told them to flee to? And so this is absolutely absurd. So you mean to tell me that when the saints read 1 Corinthians 15, the change to immortality in the twinkling of an eye, that the mental image when they read those texts was we were going to be dancing in the streets? That when they read the meeting of Christ in the air with the dead, that they thought when they read those propositions that we're going to be dancing in the streets? That is not the mental image that nobody has ever read. So Don is the very first Christian scholar, very first Christian debater to associate the resurrection that changed immortality and the meeting with Christ with this dancing in the streets idea. You'll never find this in any commentary. You'll never find this in any church father, any theologian, nobody. He is the very first man in history, in church Christian human history, to affirm this. And I think that this should raise red flags within the preterist community, in my humble opinion. And it was well worth every single penny, Derek, because this means so much to me. This Bible business means so much to me. And I just refuse to, accept this idea. But this is what Don has to hang his hat on. He cannot retract this. And as you can see, he's still claiming this and holding firm to it.
Based on your engagements with full preterist engagement, I say plural because there's so many you have. What do they mean by change to immortality? Like, what do they mean by that? Because it's, from my understanding, from the scholarship, critical scholarship, there is a real implication of immortality that term immortality, when you look, especially in the zeitgeist of the first century, to other mystery cults, that they will live forever. There is an aspect in which their bodies will transform, or in some way they will be deified. There's like a deification to immortalization that happens ubiquitous. So what do full preterists do? How do they define the change to immortality? What does that even mean?
Yeah, and this is where I bring up epistemology, where what happened in their cognition? How did they process this information that they knew that they were changed to immortality? Those living hundreds of miles away, and they're very unclear on this. This is why I've brought up neuroscience in the past, but even from a Christian worldview, Derek. How did they experience this spiritual experience? How did they
Mhm.
process this information that then they knew that they were changed to immortality? And many have criticized the full preterists, that stating, well, if they were immortal, what about sin? Did they still have their sin nature that wrestled with the flesh and the spirit in Galatians 5, since they're perfected? And this is, if I could just bring this up,
Right.
Don had a debate with Chris Date on Standing for Truth, and I asked him this question in the super chat. I said, okay, so what happened after 70 AD when the living saints returned back to Jerusalem? Did they preach the gospel to the same Roman soldiers who potentially murdered their friends and their family? And he affirmed this. He had stated that the Christians returned back to Jerusalem and they evangelized. So I had a
Mm.
discussion with the full preterist, and I asked them, I said, look, if you're perfected, if you're in your immortal state, would you have any struggle to go and preach the gospel to the same man who murdered your family? And he had stated, no, I wouldn't. And I go, this is absolutely insane. There are plenty of Christians that would at least admit that they would struggle to preach a message of divine love, compulsory love, to the same man who murdered their friends and their family. But you have to state this, and Don affirmed this. And I have another problem with that. I think most humans would too. That the saints returned back to Jerusalem and they had zero problems preaching the gospel to the same Roman soldiers who murdered their friends and their family. No struggle at all. They're in their immortal state, and now they've met Christ in the air. This is absolutely absurd, Derek, and you will never find a Christian scholar or theologian that is going to, affirm this and be adherent to this doctrine.
So playing the tape back, full preterism doesn't work for you. Clearly, I mean, you're not going to play word games and try to
Right.
make sense of stuff that doesn't make sense to you at all. And I don't blame you, because that's where I'm at. And then going backwards, we can't unsee the clear indications that the expectation of the end and something was big was supposed to happen, which in your view, not only the actual problem of evil that we see in the world around us in terms of reality, looking at how life is, evolution. I mean, there's just so many things we can bring in to the picture. Even if you're not, let's just pretend we're talking to someone who doesn't even believe in evolution, because golly, I mean, you got to speak to experts here. They don't accept that. There's probably some conspiracy in their brain, and their brain just isn't accepting these things. Like if you looked around and you pretended that 7,000 years ago, God made the world, now they got to accept that animals didn't eat themselves before Adam's fall.
Yeah.
Like animals that existed. There's so much absurdity that comes into this. So, all right, let's not go there. I want to get into futurism for a second, because I know full preterists, they've taken quite a few punches from you just now. And I'm like, come on, man, let me take a break, bro. What about futurism, man? Why don't you go back like Sam Frost? Why don't you just convert back to orthodoxy, bro, and just start publishing Christian books and become a Christian again? What is your problem with not being a Christian again, Tristan?
I'm glad you said that, because it's 2,000 years too long. What other religious prophecy, if you're a Christian and you're hearing this, what other religious prophecy would you put your faith in for 2,000 years? What other religion would come in and say, hey, listen, I have a Messiah figure, and he went up into heaven, and he's promised to return. He may return this year, he may return next year. No man knows the day or the hour. How long would you put your faith into another religious prophecy? And so you have to have special pleading. You have to have relativism. I can't use relativism anymore. I can't use special pleading. I can't use faith anymore. And Derek, if I can say this, I throughout all my life, I've always imagined Jesus sitting on a throne. There's textual evidence for this in Revelation, that when we're thinking about Christ and we're praying, what is Christ doing up in heaven physically in his glorified body? He's still the same person with nailed, scarred hands. He's
Mhm.
still the same person that came out of the womb of Mary. What has he been doing right now? Is he just sitting on the throne like a statue, watching evil happening to children? And if I could just hang my hat on one question, and I've asked this with scholars, I've asked this with pastors. As a matter of fact, I have a clip on my YouTube channel where a pastor I work for, I asked him, I said this, okay, if you had the power to stop evil, if you had the power to stop evil, would you do it instantaneously or would you wait 2,000 years? And I even state, would you stop evil happening to children? And that one question, if you were an omnipotent being, or if you had the power to, even if it was a natural ability, would you stop evil happening to children, innocent victims, instantly? Or would you wait 2,000 years while you sit on a throne and just wait and wait and wait? So I'm not just going to keep on waiting in faith while this man upstairs is sitting on a throne, waiting to be commissioned from the Father to come and bring about a new heavens and a new earth and bring about a stop to evil with no more tears, no more pain, no more sorrow. So that's the reason, Derek. I cannot put my faith morally and ethically on a man upstairs who's sitting on a throne, just looking at innocent victims, children being, molested, being sex trafficked, being murdered. This is absolutely untenable. And I often compare it to a police officer. If there was a police officer who was watching a criminal violate a child, murder a child, and that police officer was just sitting down and doing absolutely nothing about it, that police officer would be condemned.
It's
By
worse
all
than
society.
that. It's worse than that because this is supposed to be your father.
Yes.
This isn't just a cop. This isn't a
Yes.
stranger who has a duty. This is deeper than that. This is more personal than that. This is your dad in heaven. This is the perfect father who's watching, and his son, right? Like, what a trick. Imagine, I could see excuses. We all do this, right? Cognitive dissonance kicks in and we're going to psychologically try to explain away what you just said. How do we do it? Well, what if, Derek, what if, Tristan, all that nasty, disgusting, horrifying things that we experience are actually good? Now you have the author of confusion, because now all of our senses and experiences, which tell us these are evil and bad, it's a trick. It's actually good. And then you have, let me give you an interesting position. And James Tabor, one of the scholar friends that I talk to on a regular, almost every day we message each other, right? Dude, this guy was taught by some of the top dogs in critical, biblical, and ancient Near Eastern and Mediterranean world, all this stuff. Jonathan Z. Smith, things like that. We were just talking. I did a video the other day mentioning Jeff Tripp, who's writing an article called Death by Cop. It's something like this, where Jesus may have intentionally, if you just take the historical Jesus idea, that these ideas where he's predicting his own death and predicting his own resurrection. Imagine you had a cult leader that's sincere. All right, let's just go with the sincere route. Guy named Jesus, apocalyptic Jew, expects the end is going to happen soon, and he purposely martyrs himself. He plans on dying. In fact, he goes out of his way to ensure that you kill him. All right. He goes into the temple and starts to rile up stuff. They arrest him in the garden. Somehow he escapes the temple. They don't get him then, but he's clearly stirring up problems that they're not okay with. They catch him in the garden and they arrest him, and he is put to death. His believers think he died and rose again. This death by cop idea, purposeful suicide, that he intentionally meant to die, maybe expecting the end to happen even before he died. Maybe he thought he was going to be vindicated, like just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days. But what happened to Jonah? He got spit up on a shore. What if he's so delusional in the sense that he believes that he is going to be vindicated, right? And his followers believe, just like Jonah, he's going to come back. But really, he doesn't. But they're psychologically trying to make sense of this stuff. I'm just giving you an idea. Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, how is it that this evil you're describing, I could sit back and watch one of my sons have this happen to him and me not go in there and do the most gruesome shit to try and defend my kids? Are you kidding me? I'm dying in the process of saving those kids. You're not going to do that to my children. And all of our intuitions say that he's a loving, perfect, omniscient God. How do we understand what omniscient means if we don't have the inference from our own experience to understand that he's better than that? He's better than what we are, supposedly. How can you sit back here and say that makes any sense? I'm sorry. That makes no sense. It's absurd. and needs to be neglected. Your point is such a good point, dude. And here's something about you. I want to give you some praise. When we've been talking, you have a keen way of observing things that I never did, even when I was in full preterism, and even as I've done MythVision for years, which is why I reached out to you. We talked, and I was like, I never thought to think like that when I was a full preterist. This is a really interesting way of thinking, and you did a damn good job of getting me to think in ways I didn't really think about. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
If you have any comments to anything I just said, man, I'm all ears.
I mean, those analogies are spot on, Derek. And this is why I say, even if futurism is true, even if we should put our faith in this prophecy, I can't do it morally and ethically. I cannot violate the most common basic integrity as a man, as a human being, to just wait for the man upstairs to come down and bring about this new heavens and this new earth. It's been 2,000 years too long. So when we get into failed prophecy, which if I were to choose my position, I would just hang my hat on failed prophecy. And failed prophecy, Derek, is multifaceted. It's not just the time statements and audience relevance that Christ did not return in the time frame. It's been failing humanity this entire time. Well, he's just allowing all of this chaos to take place. And we're just waiting for God the Father to push the button to send the Son back down to the earth. To stop innocent victims, women and children, innocent men all throughout the world. It's just so much chaos. So I cannot morally and ethically use faith as a cop-out for reason and as a cop-out for just basic moral integrity. And I'm so happy in this generation that not just Christians are leaving the faith, but we see Muslims, we see Mormons, we see people of all religions now leaving this ancient barbaric view of, just abandoning reason and accepting evil as if something evil is somehow now good. And now we're at fault for considering that evil happening to my children, to my mother, to my spouse, whoever it is, that's somehow a good thing and it's bringing Christ glory. And like I said, I go back to Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell brought up suffering children. He has said, I invite any Christian to attend a children's hospital to see the suffering that is there being endured. A man must destroy in himself all feelings of mercy and compassion, and he must make himself as cruel as the God in whom he believes. And no man's ethics can be morally unimpaired if he keeps having to make excuses on pain and misery upon children. And that quote from Bertrand Russell, I truly believe, Derek, that if I'm on my deathbed, all I can say is that I have been honest, and I cannot morally and ethically side with any God, whether it's Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, whoever it is, any other dying or rising God. I cannot morally and ethically side with that. And if I go to hell for it, then so be it. I mean, all I can say is that I have been genuine, I have been honest. And another one is I cannot call child abusers, those who are murdering children, I can't call them a brother. I refuse to preach the gospel, and I never have, Derek, by the way. That was one thing that I never did as a Christian minister. If I found out that there was somebody who abused a little boy, a little girl, even in the prisons, I never preached the gospel to them. And as a matter of fact, Jesus was the one who stated, it's better to have a millstone tied around their neck and tossed into the sea if anybody harms any of these little children. And so even to this day, I refuse to go to heaven, if there is a heaven. And if there's child abusers that are forgiven, I cannot morally and ethically side with that. And I refuse to call them a brother. And I'm not going to hug them, hold hands in fellowship, go out to eat. And I just can't do that as a man. So that's just my own personal preference. It's very difficult for me. It's very difficult for me to side with that.
Wow.
And so the existence of evil is just something that, and what's funny is I spoke to a pastor. I posted this on my YouTube channel. I told him the same thing. I said, listen, pastor, if you want me to leave skepticism and you want me to come back to the faith, let me ask you, if somebody abuses my little boy, I have a son, he abuses my little boy, he goes to prison for it, he comes out. Am I going to one day see you going out to eat with him and restore him and bring him back into the fellowship, bring him back into the fold? Are you going as a pastor, as a minister? Are you going to do that for somebody who did this to my little boy? And he said, yes. He goes, I would. It's my obligation as a Christian minister to restore those. And I said, well, then that's a betrayal of our friendship, because I would never do that. If somebody did that to your son or your daughter, I just can't do that.
Wow.
And so Yeah. And so to me, and when I bring up the words of Jesus himself, it's better to have a millstone tied around their neck and toss it to the sea. So what do, Derek? Do you baptize them or do you drown them? Or do you drown them while you baptize them? Which one is it?
In
So,
the name of
in the name of Jesus. And so people go, well, they could still be saved. I go, okay, so they're still saved. Yes. Okay, well then make sure you get that millstone and tie it around their neck and toss them into the sea. Follow up. And apparently those words mean nothing. Jesus uttered those words in there and they mean absolutely nothing. And so, like I said, I'm somebody who cherishes the future generation. Bertrand Russell said the same thing. That's one of his passions. And that's me too. I am an educator. And I cherish the youth. Even when I was in, youth ministry, I cherish the future generations. And, I'm not a victim of child abuse. I've never experienced that.
right.
But nobody has to experience that to see that this is totally unacceptable. And the existence of evil upon innocent children. Somehow, Derek, you and we're full of the devil because we're fighting for the innocence of children, fighting for the innocence of the future generation. Now, somehow I'm satanic. I'm a lover of the creation more than the creator. So I'm just somebody, Derek, who's just trying to be honest in this journey.
I know you are.
I'm trying to be just as genuine as possible. So there's no way that I can go back to the Christian faith or any religion. I'm siding with the skeptics, and I will side with atheists before I side with any dogmatic view. And if there is a God out there, if there is a mind out there, if we're in a simulation, whatever it is, we really don't know. But all I know is that, I'm in the here and now, Derek. And if there is no afterlife, we die, we go back to non-existent. Well, to me, that makes this life much more important. That if this is all that we have, that means I should love myself and love others much more now because this is all that we have.
Yeah,
so
cherish
the
it.
the here and now matters. Today matters, and it matters much more. So that's where I'm at in my life. And so I just want people, I want people to, not squander their life on religion. I want people to live their dreams, whatever that may be, so long as it's not hurting anybody. And if they want to be religious, fine.
Yeah.
So long as it's not hurting anybody.
I'm glad you brought that in. Yeah, I'm glad. Because that's the thing. Like, even if I don't care that people are Christians, I think there's a misunderstanding from some that I hate Christians or Christianity. Like, here's the thing. While I think it's false, and there's aspects about it that I don't like, same thing with the Hebrew Bible or any other types of religions that I see harm from. I get it. Sometimes the world is so hard and people are where they're at, and this gives them hope and things like that. When you weaponize your faith and you're going out like attacking or doing apologetic nonsense, I got to put on my the armor of skeptic. I have the breastplate of rationality. I have the sword of logic. I have, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, nah, man, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this to help people find freedom, such as yourself, who actually, feel better based on your experience of not being in the church. But even then, you had good experiences. Some people have had worse experience, like far worse experience in the faith, and you can have faith. I know Christians, by the way, who literally I just did an interview with a scholar, James F. McGrath. We're going to have this video launched sometime soon where he's like, yeah, it looks like Jesus was a failed messianic prophet. He's a Christian. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is not all Christians wear the same outfit. Not all of them are holy rolling at your front door knocking, insane like me and you. Crazy about Jesus, delusional, thinking that heavens are literally going to part at any moment. Like, you know what? I have a feeling right now the clouds are he's about to come through the damn clouds right now. Like that's how crazy, there's much more like normal individuals out there who are like, Christianity's like, I like it. And it's my thing, and it's my culture, and it's my tradition. And I believe Jesus rose from the dead. But they're not like out here going, we know it. And anyone else who cannot see the facts of the eyewitnesses and the claims and the sources, the independent attestation, and like, bro, while they ignore all and dismiss all other claims and all other eyewitness claims and such, and the inspiration for much of the stuff we find in the Gospels. Anyway, there's so much to cover. We should do these super chats, but before we do, I have to ask everybody to subscribe right here. You see this 84 subscribers? Let me zoom into this bad boy. We have to get these numbers up. This is the Wolf of Wall Street, ladies and gentlemen. You got to bump these numbers up, baby. There's 84 subscribers. That was what it was before we streamed, right?
That's what it was before, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put this link in the chat. We got 661 people watching right now. Here is the link to the YouTube. Please, please, please subscribe right now to my buddy Tristan. I promised him we'd get a couple hundred during our stream. I'd like to see that change. I do not know how many there are yet. We're going to come back to this, but I can tell you this, every subscriber right now, everyone who subscribes is going to the real heaven, okay? You don't want the eternal condemnation that comes without subscribing to Tristan. You got to do this. You got to look out for our friends. So you're doing a lot of videos. You're going to do more, but hey, if you want to hear more from Tristan, you want to hear more of what he has to say. By the way, if you want to recreate, you can use the entire debate on your channel, bro. You sponsor this. Feel free to reproduce the debate anytime you want, Tristan. I don't care.
Thank you.
The whole thing.
I see you got the highlight right there with dancing in the streets. Many in the preterist community enjoyed that one, by the way. It was great.
Feel free to, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to come back to that here in just a second. Let's get these 4 super chats out of the way, or actually 3. Daniel, again, thank you for being a member for 29 months, man. I really do appreciate you for being here. And that's a long time. You've been in the new heavens and new earth. How is life, my friend? Now that you're in the new heavens and new earth. Real Pumpkin J, thank you for the super chat. I'm only a Patreon member, but I love your material. Do keep it up, please. I think Jay's talking to me. You don't have a Patreon, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. I'm trying to produce more and more material here. So I really appreciate the love. And we've got more stuff coming. I want to do a series like just focusing on each episode of the life of Jesus and seeing if there's any antecedents to Hebrew Bible, to apocryphal material, to non-Jewish material, parallels to other mythic, legendary stories, things like that. I want to do a series like that and let people kind of look into the life of Jesus in a different way than what we've usually seen. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to do, Tristan, is I'm actually going to write a book when I'm done, I imagine, or when I have time. I was thinking of a title of like 101 myths in the Bible, but there's already a book out there called that, but it's not the kind of book I'm talking. What I'm talking about is like Genesis creation. Let me show you where scholars have thought there are real antecedent myths that may have actually influenced the Genesis myth directly, and then analogous paralleled myths that are also in the vein, whether it's in the Hindu mythology, whether it's in this obscure, different out here in a different location kind of mythology, but there's overlap and similarities in the myths. I'm going to try and do that. It won't be exhaustive. And then go to the flood story and then do the flood myths and then go into other stories like Abraham. Is there other paralleled myths to Abraham? When I first thought that question, I was like, I can't think of one. Holy smokes, bro. Yes. Even the sacrificing of his only 2 children. There's a king in the Greek myth, Athamas and Phrixus and his sister Helle. They are going to be sacrificed because the cloud goddess says, anyway, we can get into the weeds, but he tries to sacrifice his kids and a golden fleeced ram saves them on a mountain. And the king is being faithful to the oracle at Delphi. Like, you find these parallels, whether or not they're connected or not, they are mythological and the similar kind of tropes. I want to do that with the entire Bible.
Nice.
I'd like to.
I'm nice. I'm looking forward to it.
Imagine going to one book and you could just turn to, what's Ruth have? Let's see if there's any examples of Ruth. Let's see. Are there, and I also would like to capture historical things that I think biblical authors are lifting from history, other historical events, real historical kings like Sargon. He has a legendary birth myth, but are there stories that are lifting from possible historical wars and stuff from other kingdoms? One guy pointed out Solomon, with all the riches and all the chariots and gold, may have been borrowing from Shalmaneser III, because we have no at all any evidence that a guy named Solomon had anything vast like it's described in the Bible. But we do from Assyria and Babylon and things like that. So are the biblical authors looking up at their big brother and going, oh, oh, let's have a story of our guy who's also like that king over here. And so I'm trying to do stuff like that. Deconstruction Zone, my brother, if you haven't subscribed, you need to. By the way, he shared this stream out to his Discord for you, Tristan. I asked him to. And
thank you.
Yeah, he said, this looks interesting. You're not a real minister in the UPC unless you have 3 titles: Bishop, Pastor, Apostle, Tristan.
That's it right there.
That's a good
Amazing.
one. That's
funny. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I'd love to see you and him connect sometime, actually, because he's quick-witted like you, on the spot. Y'all debate. You and him will get in there and do debates and stuff. And he's also a deconverted guy, ex-Christian. He went into seminary. He went all the way in his education and learned this stuff. And he knows the Bible quite well. And then the last one I have is Per Aspera ad Astra. Thank you so much for the super chat. Leaving Christianity healed my dissonance and depression. What do I do if medicine to me is poison to my family? Challenging Christianity causes my family members depression. I'm stuck. I just don't.
Can I
yeah, tackle this and then I'll give mine. Yeah,
that one hit home. I don't share with my mother particularly, or my father, everything, because I don't want them. Now, let me tell you, I did, tell my mother about the conclusive arguments from full preterism, because she still is a full preterist and she's getting a lot of flack in her own, social Christian circles just for holding on to full preterism. And I don't want to take away, the hope of, those my friends and my family members. And I feel the same way. But at the end of the day, I still have to be honest if somebody's going to ask me. So that one hits home, Derek, because all my friends that are no longer my friends, because now I'm a heretic, now I'm full of the devil. All of my Christian friends in Bible school and just all throughout the years, my whole life, I'm not trying to hurt no one's faith and hope, but I still have to be honest. So I'm not here to go out and destroy somebody's hope, especially those. And I want to say this: I do commend those who are elders, those who are higher up in age, for them to leave the faith and the hope. I commend them very much. I think it can be easier for a younger person to do so, in my opinion. Maybe there's some we talk about cognitive dissonance, but I want to commend anybody who's at that elderly age. If they leave the faith, my goodness, that is so much more commendable, because we often talk about the hope of an afterlife, the hope of entering into the pearly gates. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to benefit humanity. I still have that minister mindset, that evangelistic mindset of just trying to be pure in my motives and trying to share the truth and let the chips fall where they fall. If the truth offends us, then they become brute facts. But at the end of the day, that one hits home. But I'm very selective, Derek, on who I would, even with my own students. I see Christian students. I'm very selective on who I speak to and share information with. But that one hits home. And so sometimes I do feel stuck sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie to anybody. And if somebody really wants to take the pill, take the red pill, right, and get deep into the rabbit hole, I'm gladly, exuberant to leave them and to leave them there. So that would be my response to that.
Yeah, I think that was well said. Each person's gonna have a different kind of family dynamic and different experience at home. So how they navigate that is going to be dependent upon their own experience. I can only tell you mine, and I'm sure Tristan can tell you his. As he said, I tried to share this and explain that I'm no longer Christian, and it hurt my mom. It scared her. Yeah. She had dreams where she was like, "You're going to come back. God told me you're going to come back." And I'm like, "Well, he's got some work to do, to show me." And it's really not hard. I mean, if you just read the book, he does a lot of shit that would persuade me if I saw it. Okay, like, I'm just doubting Thomas, Mom, as I'm trying to convey it like I'm doubting Thomas. Though it looks fictional when Jesus breaks the fourth wall after telling Thomas, "You see that? You believe. But blessed are you who don't see." It's like, you're reading it. Is he looking at me? That's the point on how they wrote that. You could tell he's breaking the fourth wall in John's gospel. But anyway, I'm like, Mom, it's really easy. I don't think if he could create all this and he has the power to do all this, he could really easily get me to believe again. And she goes, She believes that that is going to happen. So I'm like, okay, so we don't really go into that. She knows where I'm at, and I think it has offended her when I've been a little more aggressive about presenting it to the fam.
Yeah.
I don't care to mention it to them. I try to relate on the experience level rather than the words of Christianity or Jesus, like love and compassion, common attributes of experience. When someone's hurt or they're sad, I comfort them. Like, I think that fundamental, it's almost like the book of James, true religion, feeding that hungry person and clothing the person who's cold and showing with action love. Forget what you believe. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Honestly, like, who cares what you think in your head or what others think something's out there? It's more about like, what are they doing? How are they treating you? How are you treating them? To me, that kind of religion, if you're going to have any, that's a good kind of practice to have. And with that is what I'm trying to aim at, even though I do like dismissing superstitious claims and ridiculous stuff like Lucian, and kind of do like pointing out how absurd they are. You know, I don't mean to personally offend you, but if you're an asshat about it, you're going to get offended by me being critical. I can't help it. It is what it is. That's my response. I don't know, man.
Yeah, very, very good input, you know, and I could relate to it 100%. And, you know, I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be healthy. And, you know, we'll see what the future holds. And I'm just honest and I'm sincere in my approach, just like you, Derek. And, you know, if I've told you this before, but, you know, your channel is legendary. I mean, you are a legend in human history. I mean, I'm talking about all throughout human history.
I did have a divine birth, in case.
That's what, exactly. Yeah. You know, because nobody has brought out, you know, the mythological aspects of the Bible on a world-class platform such as yourself. No human being in history has done this. So I myself, and I know many others, you know, we look at you as somebody who is carrying this mantle, who is a legend in human history. And who knows, who knows what's going to happen 1,000 years from now into the future, and what you've done. So I'm just honored to be a part of MythVision. You know, and I'm an adherent for life, man, you know, so at the end of the day, I'm very grateful. I'm honored. And I'm thankful for what you've given humanity, and not just your own personal beliefs, but man, you use so many different eclectic sources, you know, from so many scholars, who were former Christians, you know, even people who contributed to the critical thinking. And it's just absolutely amazing, very beneficial. And I'm excited to see where your channel is going to go. You know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, even in the near future, I'm very excited because I know that this is changing the game. It's changing lives. And that's what I'm in it for. I'm in it for the here and now. And I'm just out for the common good of humanity.
When I die, will you write my eulogy for me? You don't mind? Just write my eulogy, bro.
You do the same thing.
I got you, bro. I got you.
Thank you.
No, seriously, I feel a little bit blushing here because it's like I've never had anyone do all that. But you know what I mean? Look, man, we got to start a cult, okay? You're going to be one of the bishops, and we're going to be okay here. Now, seriously though, I do appreciate it. I think you know that I put a lot into this. You've put a lot into this, man, and we connected. I hope people will subscribe to you. We're going to refresh that here in just a second. So if you doubted that the end was going to happen, it's about to happen any moment now. We're about to see how many subscribers entered the pearly gates. Those on the outside, revelation, we know what happens. Thanks a lot for that, Tristan. I appreciate it, man. But at the end of the day, it is a we project. I mean, for example, we got Pragmatic Crystal, and I realized I had an email that we were going to celebrate her just for being such a team player. She's been in here for, I don't know, Pragmatic, how long have you been here, Crystal? Like 3-4 years, like cheerleading and sending links, like without me even saying anything. Look, right now, look at this. Just every freaking stream, dude. I've never met her. And let's help support Tristan Gabriel. Please subscribe. Like, it isn't me, bro. Yeah, I'm enthusiastic. I'm just a crazy dude who has 3 kids and a wife and loves this stuff and is like, yo, okay, let me email this scholar because their book blew my mind. And this is something I will say that they're like, what's the magic juice you have, D? And I'm like they interview this scholar, but they've never communicated with them themselves. And they're PhDs. And I go, I write them kissing their ass for how great their work is, because it really is great to me. And they love it. And they're like, yeah, I'll come on and do an episode. And like, you got so-and-so to come on? Yeah, because I just wrote them a down to earth. My emails aren't, hello, this afternoon, Professor so-and-so. My emails are like, Dr. So-and-so, this book is something else. I've never read a book that actually covers this topic. On page 364, you said this. It really shocked me to hear that. I've never heard that perspective. And they're like, this guy read my book. This guy knows my stuff. So they want to come on and they want to, like, they love that their work's taken serious. You're taking MythVision serious. I take other people serious. I take you serious. We spent hours on the phone, bro. So I hope that energy and that vibe is contagious and everyone else keeps doing it. Because look, man, truth be told, we are MythVision.
Yes,
you see
what
I'm saying?
Yes.
That's how I feel about it, bro. Okay. People are saying they subscribed. Pragmatic. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. You're the team player of team players here. By the way, I have a Discord too. I am going to be more active in. I want that thing to go viral. I want so many numbers. Discord is going to have to call me and say, hey, you got to start paying, man. You got too many members in your Discord. We got to do something about these numbers. Wolf of Wall Street Discord, ladies and gentlemen, the link's in the description. I'll try to pin a comment at the end that has both Tristan's YouTube channel and our Discord so that you can find both easy. Should we refresh it now, Tristan?
Yeah, sure. And again, I've had some interviews, with some voices in the preterist community, but I would like to have, a channel just like yours, Derek, sharing it with those who have voices. It could be anybody. So if there's anybody who's listening, if you're interested in, me hosting, a dialogue on a topic, I am a skeptic. And and my channel is called 21st Century Mind, which can cover so many facets because we're in the 21st century and we all have minds. So, I do come from a critical approach, a skeptical approach, and I'm dedicated to various topics: philosophy, science, religion, anthropology, culture, you name it. And I just barely got started in this. I am an educator, I am busy. But the time that I have, the free time, I like to make little clips that I believe will benefit those who are genuinely interested in these topics. And so, thank you for those who listening. Thank you for those who have subscribed. And if you ever like to, come on and just share your thoughts, if you're in it just for the love of it,
how do they reach you?
I have an email there, tristangabe21@gmail.com. It should be in the description.
Right here.
So, yeah, just reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to talk about these topics. I just had an interview with Roderick Edwards, who was a former full preterist. He was a leading a voice and an author of over 30 books. I have Dr. Steve Cox. You can see him there. He has a clinical background in science and therapy. So I'm just somebody who's genuine in this. I'm not here to, bolster my subscribers or get a whole bunch of, numbers, but it does inspire. It does help. It does excite when there's new faces and there's new desires and new opportunities.
Just like King Solomon, it's like God asks you, what do you want? And you're like, I don't want my enemies' deaths. I don't want riches. I just want wisdom. Well, because of that, Tristan, we're going to give you a shit ton of subscribers now, and you're going to get blessed with your enemy's death. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'll tell you what I would like. If I could choose something I would like to have an open discussion with Don K. Preston.
I love that.
I would absolutely love that. I have been on other podcasts in the preterist community, other leading voices of full preterism. It's been very respectful, very cordial. And, I believe that if Don is a good sport, since I've helped sponsor his debate to make his dream debate come true, made a historical advancement for his ministry, for his movement, I think that he, should be a good sport and at least have an open dialogue, even if it's not a debate, because I admire Don. I respect Don, and I'm grateful. And I know you feel the same way, Derek.
I like him.
Sometimes, he'll be on his channel.
Defensive.
He'll call me out.
He's defensive, bro. That's part of the game. And listen, you can't knock him. I know some of the full preterists in the Facebook groups and stuff, they knock him hard. They don't like him. That's their prerogative. If they don't like him, they think he's a disrespectful person. That's their thing. I don't. I like him. I don't agree with his conclusion, but I don't need to point out that I personally think he's a gentleman. I think he's a kind guy. I think he's wrong, but I once thought he was right. And I was persuaded by his arguments like you. So let's refresh this thing real quick here. They got 10 seconds, though. I'm going to go ahead and give a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Click that subscribe. 2, 1.5, 1, 0.9, 0.8. I'm trying to save you. I'm long suffering. 2 Peter. I'm trying to learn from the Bible here. 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. Here we go. See what we got. Can we get 200, ladies and gentlemen? Can we get 200, please? I'm begging right now. 26 people subscribe to my friend Tristan in the next minute. All right, Tristan, anything else you want to cover before we end up dropping off here and ending this episode? We got 26 people to make it to 200. I know we can do this. I know we can. What else did we miss, Tristan?
I mean, we pretty much covered everything, we covered our testimonies. You and I, we share the same backgrounds pretty much. And you've been very influential in my life, as long as many others too. And so long as I live, I'm somebody who's dedicated to these fields of academia, and scholasticism. And so, I do like to debate and have open live discussions. I think I shared with you, Derek, that I just got on with Jim Bob, him and
Yeah.
and all these guys. And I got on right on the whim. I was on my lunch break. I had a prep period. And as an educator, I'm busy. I had things, but I had to get on for the second time.
You're funny, dude. You're funny. By the way, when I watched it, I knew right away. I mean, this is the kind of word stuff. This is why I don't do debates, honestly, with people like that.
Yeah.
it's not an actual, real, honest dialogue. It's a try to trick you gotcha thing. Like, with what authority can you interpret what this means? Like, go outside the Bible. Use any textbook. Forget the Bible. Jim Bob, if you're reading any type of manual instruction, do you have the authority to decipher how to put that desk together? Well, how can you claim you know how to put that desk together without the correct authority? I'm making a joke, of course, because they have so much authority and baggage to the Bible, and how the church must be the one that deciphers it, because he wants to avoid wading into theological or even implications that we find within biblical text. They don't like that. They want to play word games. They want to go, tell me, how do you have meaning without using meaning? Well, prove to me logic exists without using logic. I mean, like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard online. It doesn't even, it's like, wow, we have no common ground. And that somehow proves his God. I mean, that somehow gets you to this closer to, like, convincing you of what? Of the Amalekites being slaughtered and commanded, that God gives Solomon the command to go kill every man, woman, and child?
Yeah.
Like, well, hold on. We got to talk about, first of all, how do you explain existence without using existence, Tristan? It's that dumb, dude. Honestly.
Yeah, and I highly doubt. And that was my second time engaging with him, in which he kicked me off. By the way, I was nothing but cordial, very gentleman mannered, very respectful. I look at this as being professional when I have live stream or debate. I highly doubt, Derek, that he's read the Bible from front to cover, in my opinion. And I'm just being honest based on my experience my whole life in this. So at the end of the day, I am somebody who does like to debate. I look at it like an art. I look at it like a sport, and so I absolutely love it. I'm definitely not the best, but I'm somebody who's willing to debate the best, so it's just who I am. I can't get away from it. I absolutely love it. I enjoy it. So if there was anybody that would like to, have a cordial live discussion, if you're opposing any of these views, I'm somebody who's proven myself to be very respectful, very cordial in debates and live discussions. And so that's it. I'm a servant for humanity. I want the common good to take place. And MythVision is that place where you can get so many resources. It could literally change your life. And I'm myself and many others can testify to this. And so I'm just excited what the future holds. And I'm wishing the best for everybody listening. You, Derek, thank you so much for having me on. It's definitely been an honor and a pleasure, and a defining moment in my life, in my humble opinion. So thank you so very much. I really do appreciate your time and your efforts.
Dude, you're too kind, man. You're too kind. As you know, I appreciate you too. So we're at 187. Listen, I don't know if the Tristan God will show mercy, but I think the next 13 will be also spiritual billionaires like me and win the lottery. And you can dance in the streets and they will know that you're a billionaire. That's for sure, ladies and gentlemen. Look, go subscribe to Tristan. It's been absolutely a joy learning from you. I hope to do more of these kind of discussions, Tristan, because there's something about relating to a story that people can have, because we all can find somewhere along the way, usually common ground in something that's going on in people's lives. And I do appreciate it. Any final words from you as we are about to exit?
Just thank you for having me on. I mean, keep doing it. Derek, you have my support for life. And if there's any debates in the future that you like to have on your platform, you definitely have somebody that can pitch in and sponsor these, because I absolutely love them. And like I said before, I'm an adherent for life. We are MythVision, and I'm definitely included in that we. Thank you for reaching out to me. Just thank you for, all the efforts. I know it takes so much time and dedication, and I believe that your best days are ahead of you. I cannot wait to see where MythVision is going to go in the near future, in the far distant future. I mean, I'm absolutely excited.
Thank you, bro.
Just thank you so very much for all your time, your efforts, your dedication, just everything. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Same with you, man. You made the sponsoring happen of the debate with Richard Carrier and Don K. Preston. You came and participated and gave us your story. You opened up into your personal life and gave us a lot of that. We appreciate you. You were well articulate and very smart, man. I really do appreciate you being my friend and giving me your time as well. I think it's time that we go ahead and exit, and let's do this again in the future. But in case people forget, subscribe to his channel, join the Discord. If you want to support our channel, links are in the description. And never forget again, we are MythVision.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.